Vous n'êtes pas d'ici, vous.
Je suis comme tu dirais de passage.
Vous n'êtes pas le seul.
Ça avait pas un vrai alcool plutôt.
Je vais chercher des munitions.
Il y a un paquet de pognon là-dedans, hein.
C'est pour le gagnant du défi. Ça vous tente? Attention, hein. C'est qu'il y en a un paquet qui s'y sont cassés les dents.
Pas vraiment commun votre bar.
Pas vraiment, non. C'est plutôt un rad.
Ouais. Un bon vieux bouge, quoi.
Ah non, c'est un rad.
Everyone, I'm Benji Carver, back again in the Warped Dimension for another Kid Go Killer Hour with a very special one of my favorite short films of 2020, A Wreck in Paradise, and the director himself, François Zaïdi, and also a little friend I brought along with us as well to talk. So cheers from abroad out there, but live coming to you from, well, this is a pre-recorded, but of course, coming to you from Paris, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
So, that is some old whiskey.
I know that bottle, really.
And, but yeah, A Wreck in Paradise has won an award at Warped Dimension Fest this past September, as well as played as part of Benji's Cosmic Finds #4, The Weird, Wicked, and the Wild. Such a pleasure to have you again. We always have a great conversation. So let's get to it.
Yeah, okay.
Wreck in Paradise. Tell us a little about it. I mean, of course, it is very biblical, but it is the best kind of biblical. I grew up going to Sunday school, and I was a seminary student at one point. Not for the Catholics, but for the Mormons.
Okay.
So I identify a lot with this, but the best way I would like to describe your short film to folks is somewhere if Charles Bukowski died and fell into the land of David Lynch and read the Bible at the same time, you get something like this movie. So hopefully that's
I think that's pretty accurate, actually. Well, it's very nice of you to put it into this kind of words. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of where we're going for. I also did Sunday school, not for very long, on the Catholic part, because France is mainly a Christian Catholics country, but I dropped it quite soon for lack of faith, obviously. And the wreck, yes, I think it was pretty funny and somewhat interesting, really, to tell the story of that guy with the eyes of God, no less. And since it's a comedy, a dark comedy, it made for quite some contrast between a very dark and, let's face it, dirty comedy. There's sex, alcohol, violence. It's a bit larger than life as well. It's intended. And then to put somewhere, but a little bit hidden, but still there, mythologic figures and a godlike figure with a godlike world with paradise and inferno, hell, and purgatory and Holy Trinity and all those things that we've been, you and me and a lot of us really, we've been infused with religion. Whether we stayed in it or get out of it, we are still in religion, and it doesn't mean that I'm saying that as well. It's not because you don't believe in God or don't have religion that you lack morality. So we know what's right and what's wrong, and we live along those paths. And that was one of the things that I wanted to say with that architecture of a film. When I wrote the piece, I don't. Many people have not seen it, but basically, it's a story. It's a funny story. It's a traditional a man walks in a bar kind of a joke. Okay, and I wanted to enhance it, and that was a way to enhance it, to give it depth. And the idea came from a simple thing, actually. I thought about failure. That's the main theme, really, of the film, is failure. And I had the story, I had failure in mind, and what is the biggest failure than fail in a purgatory and go to hell? That's the biggest one.
And I think that's in your choice of also of where the bar Le Paradis is named after, of course, John Milton's Paradise Lost, the classic alcoholic journey a character takes. But I think it's interesting is there's just so much that's going on in the sense of it is the standard man walks into a bar, but what if God was an angry old, drunk as well? Because it seems like God loves his alcohol as much as this man does as well too.
Well, it's an alcoholic superhero. It's his failure. It's his sin. Yes, it's his basic sin. So he sinned with it all the time. Yes, like you do, Benji. We know it now. And that's why he actually gets crushed in the car. He had the car accident because he's obviously completely drunk, and he's dying from it. And when he rises from the ashes, here he goes again. And kind of interestingly, this alcohol he is having, like the flask you're holding, is going to actually be an incredible weapon for him to vanquish the first the thing he has to do, the first challenge. It's actually because of alcohol that he can achieve that. And now the gates of heaven are wide open. I mean, what does he have to do now? It's pretty simple, obviously, and yet he will fail because of alcohol, and so it circles.
And it is a very circular kind of way as well. It's interesting. You do open with Matthew 25:37.
Yeah.
I can't quote it verbatim, but
I don't remember the exact, but I can quote it. It's prenez et buvez-en tous, car ceci est mon sang. So it would be like gather whole and take it because this is my blood, something like that.
Yeah.
The blood being wine, obviously, in this instance, and wine being alcohol. So it's a joke before the joke, really. This actual quote. I can find it here, maybe, if you have just a minute to do it.
I think it's also to mention. Also, what's interesting is and I watched it right before we came on again. It was my third time watching it.
Oh.
And I noticed the Sergei Gainsbourg Madonna, and I couldn't figure out who the person in the middle was, but I thought that was really another one of the rule of three. I love it when filmmakers do the rule of three, of course, the Trinity. But who was the middle poster in the bar? It's Sergei, Madonna, and then there's a middle person that's there.
What do you mean poster?
Oh, poster, like the frame. There was like 3 photos of when.
Oh, there's a bunch of them, actually. Yeah. We had about 12, 14. I did research. I wanted to have real posters. Mm-hmm. Most of them are actually advertisement. Mm-hmm. And I wanted them to have some kind of alcohol, any kind, really, and any kind of either mythological, angel, nuns, priest, or anything attached to it. You would be surprised how many I find in just a few hours. There's plenty.
Oh, yeah.
Plenty. Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of them. So
behind where the pole is, there's 3 large frames, and it's Gainsbourg, Madonna, and there's a middle person.
Yes, actually, that was in the bar already.
Oh.
And I kept it because I thought, well, Gainsbourg, well, he could very well fit in that part. Yeah. So yeah, let me check. I was referencing to the Holy Trinity because of the three challenges. So you have three challenges to do. The first one is to kill the big guy. The other one is to rip the tooth of the dog, and the third one is NC-17. he has to fuck the old lady and make a comb, which is well not that easy.
Worst
And
thing.
so that was the Holy Trinity here. Yeah.
Sex and violence is always a key thing. But in your choice also with particularly in this one moment in rewatching it, is this fish-eyed lens or kind of eye of God moment when the bartendress it's very much because your film is very framed in a certain way, and it's the only shot that I noticed that is very different in that style. Was that sort of the choice of the eye of God, or what was when she grabs the liquor from the bar or the cabinet?
That is the first hint of the first real hint of saying this is not really happening.
Okay.
This is something else. It's when you get real larger. So that the only time I shot with that fish eye, I think it was a 14 millimeter. And if you look at it, I put a small flame into her eyes at that precise point when she's getting there. There's a small thing, just an inch to say, well, there is something else. And the narrative, besides supporting that, is that actually she's running Purgatory really, and she's getting bored because obviously it's a lifetime, no, more than life. It never stops, you know. It's an eternal stuff. So obviously you're getting bored. You know, there was a philosopher, I think it's Kierkegaard, but I'm not sure. He's saying you're spending your life between being unhappy and at the other side of the scope, boredom. Because when you're going to happiness, well, it's actually after you have what you desire, so you're getting bored. And so your life is getting from unhappiness to boredom. Unhappiness, but well, she's bored. She's clearly bored. And her job as well is to accomplish her task. So it needs to be swift. And so that bottle of gout, is what is supposed to kill him, basically. And she's aghast. She's aghast when the guy actually drinks it like that. It's once again his superpower. So his original sin actually served a purpose.
Yeah, and I think it's something that is there. It's funny relating it to sort of my own theological studies growing up. There is no such thing as hell in Mormon theology at all. It is there's various divisions in it, but essentially when you die, because there's no judgment yet, you literally there's just paradise or what they call prison. But prison is just essentially their purgatory. But then paradise also sounds like prison too, because you're just waiting around for the actual day as well. So it's one of those things where it's like, wait, like, so there really is no difference.
It's funny you say that, because the guys playing poker and everything, they're stuck. That was the basic idea. They're stuck, you know. So it's kind of like prison. Albeit this is more a Roman Catholic tale, because that's its judgment. It's clearly his judgment, this moment at the bar. So if Mormon don't have judgment, it's not working quite as well.
It's strange is that you're almost kind of at the bar waiting for judgment. That's their kind of, it's like almost like a third layer, and then that's the changeover, kind of like that. So it's this weird sort of thing of death. You're automatically in purgatory no matter what you do, kind of thing. It doesn't, and it's very interesting. And then there's actual, like, which they don't know. They keep saying it's this time, or then it keeps getting pushed, you know, kind of thing. So it's interesting to see that and also I was raised by a Catholic grandmother. So Catholicism was definitely a part of my life on some level. She wasn't active, but she definitely had her attributes. She's from Italy, so that's why.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But more than that, you don't really have to be anything to understand the film,
No, no, no.
because it's a common morally that you live your life and then you'll be judged. Even if you don't believe in that, that's something that's clearly known, because it's so simple, really. I wish it were true, you know. It would help people to be a little bit nicer to each other.
That's what we tell stories. We try to simplify the on some level, or to, you know, on the more complex, or as kind of Western civilization has made it more complex towards life, kind of thing.
Yeah, and you build your films like that. This film has been built like that. It wasn't when you watch the film for the first time, you don't see everything. You don't see that. You don't understand it. You just I'm happy when people are getting out of the film having understood the just basic joke, because some actually don't. I've been told, well, your film is very good, but why does it stop? Why don't he go to the old lady? You know, I had that kind of remark, showing that the film is not understood by whole.
Yeah.
And after that, when I'm talking about what's underneath, when I like to describe the first shot, you know, it's the needle shot. It goes like this, and then you have the guy that's getting out of the car, he's upside down. It's been designed to be a birth, like a baby coming out of the womb, okay, with the eyes of God watching. And when I'm talking about it, it's to say that we as filmmakers sometimes, and more often than not, and that's the cinema I like, are putting our cameras for a definite intent, okay? And the size of the optics and everything, it should be intent. And I'm trying to have intent in anything I do, any frame I decide. I try to have an intent, movement, and everything. And when I describe that, people often tell me, but we haven't seen anything. It was not clear enough. It's not designed to be clear. It's not designed to be shown. It's just designed to be enjoyed. And then you can talk about it and watch it again, and we can talk about it. And that's what I really like. I've really been enjoying the Warped Dimension, as well as another Hole in Head, because we interacted. That's the third time now, and we can talk about the piece like I designed it. And it's maybe the first time that I can do that, because you obviously took a lot of time watching the piece, and it's very rewarding, and I wanted to thank you for that.
And well, so what's the symbology behind the woman spitting on the pole? That when she spits on the pole, what is this? I think that's something that just adds that extra beat to how fucking amazing and weird this bar is.
I think it was the first. I really wanted that from the scratch. I think it's the first turnover of the story, because at the beginning, it's very slow paced, you know, that the accident, no dialogue. And then we're in front of the bar, no dialogue. And the spit actually arrives just before it's basically the first dialogue. And it's breaking something into the film. It's saying, this is going to be dirty. That's what the spit, it was not so narrative as it was a tool for me for a rhythm change.
Yeah.
Tu peux bosser, Richard, si tu veux, sans problème. Sorry. So to me, it was mostly a rhythm change, as well as I wanted to shock people a little bit, because, and to prepare people as well. Mm-hmm. I wanted that at first, to prepare people. So first the spit, because I wanted to prepare them for the bearable death, killing, which is pretty graphic, pretty horrible, and you obviously don't want children to see it.
Yeah.
So with the spit, you stop right there if you have a children. Oh, this is not for you.
Not for the children. And so,
No.
I mean, I don't know your other previous work beforehand. Was this something that came out of any sort of certain thing with I know that in France it's different with the States. lot of times with short films, it comes from thesis and it comes from just sort of pitch to make a feature film of it. Where was kind of Wreck in Paradise's kind of inception on that end? Was it sort of just to was it are you planning to make it as a bigger piece, or is it just kind of on its own?
No, it was always planned to be only a short movie. There's a longer version. I think you've seen the version you've seen is 16 minutes long.
Yes.
There's a 20 minutes. That was the original version.
Oh.
Which is a bit longer. I can send it to you if you're interested, just to see the bits. They were not added. It was a 20-minute short film. Then I scaled it down to 15, so I had two versions. 15 minutes because I could make more festivals, because a lot stops at 15. And then I saw it in a festival once, 3 months after doing it. And the very night I was back on the editing machine, I added 46 seconds because they were lacking. So the film you've seen is 15:46. That's the long short version. Let's say it like that.
No, it's great. I mean, that is definitely, as we kind of been in this internet, world, kind of the warped dimension itself, timing has kind of gone a little different because now you can kind of stack shorts in a different timing. But yeah, in theaters mainly, it's always you kind of want to circle out about 90 minutes of film, and so yeah, if you get under 20, then they can add in more on that end. So that sort of thing. But it's kind of changed a little bit because we played around with that style, especially with the Cosmic Finds, like that. The one we had, I think, was over 2.5 hours of material that we were able to kind of stack it in there. But so like primarily because it looks like I would love to see something on a feature length from you. Are you working on anything like this? I see a gentleman behind you working on some stuff.
This is Richard.
Yeah.
He's actually fixing a light.
Yeah. Genie. Bonjour. So yeah.
I have two projects for feature films. One is with the gentleman I shot Seven Green Ball with, Mick Dow. He's a London-based director, and we are fiddling with an idea. So we would write it in duo. And then I have another thing. It's coming from a book a friend of mine wrote. It's a thriller, but it would be a big film. So it's not for right now. I mean, big film. It needs planes and capital, and it's set up in the United States. So obviously, it's not within my reach right now, if ever.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I try not to talk too much about funding, but how were you able to get something like this off the ground? Because again, most filmmakers in the States have to do either private funding or again like a student thesis. We don't really have government funding outside of the U.S. Was Wreck in Paradise something again like part of government funding? Were you able to get
Nope.
there?
Nope. In France, there's a big government funding, but it's quite tricky to get into. You need to be a writer first, really. And you write your stuff and you send it to production and it's called CNC. It goes for Center of National Cinematography. And most produce film and all big short films come through this way. If you're not in, you're out, and I was out, so I funded it myself. The film has been funded by my company, so I'm working like you've seen. Well, I can show you here. Look, this is these are that's the back, and that's the front. So basically, I have several cameras here on this portal gig. I have 8. And this is the vision mixing things, and there's screens all over the place. So I'm working most of I'm working as a camera director most of the time. I'm also doing some films for companies, but it's like 10% of my regular. And with that, so I build in Gigawatt Films, which is my company named after a great 95 film, Back to the Future, gigawatt film. And I use this money sometimes to make a short. That's as simple as it goes.
I mean, that's great that you're able to. I mean, kind of my own experiences. A lot of my mentors that they do commercials, and then they are able to. That's kind of where they kind of keep it kind of going in the muscle flex. I bounce around trying to be in various states of it. So I'm always intrigued to see because I tried to get in a little bit in the Vienna, like Berlin scene, or really not Berlin, but maybe I lived out in Vienna for a little bit of time in my 20s.
Okay.
On and off. But of course, I always tell people it's actually harder in the EU than it is even in the States to get something going if you don't speak the language and if you don't have citizenship as well.
Yes.
And then, so it's always, I always try to like, you're one of my first filmmakers I've interviewed outside of the United States and just
okay.
that take on that. We had a filmmaker for Flesh City, a feature that played at Warped Dimension. He's based in Berlin. And he was also involved in Gaspar Noé's Enter the Void. At one point, he was one of the on it. So, so I'm always intrigued to, kind of see, especially with France and kind of where is it going. I love your work in genre because you have such high respect for a lot of crime writers, more than we do in the United States. You know, it takes you're always keeping the legend of Jim Thompson alive, I call it, out there. I don't know if you've read any of his work at all, Jim Thompson's work.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Killer Inside. It's probably his biggest work. I have a French copy. It's the only thing I have from France.
Jim Thompson.
So I need to find it where is exactly, but yeah. So I'm always excited to see something that's coming, especially from France and Europe, but is sort of these genre films we kind of call it, But yeah, what are kind of some of your influences then as a filmmaker? You mentioned Back to the Future, but other films as well?
Oh, as a filmmaker or for a rec? Because it's a bit different.
Okay. I mean, you could go both. I mean, if rec was something that was inspired by, but then of course, kind of the bigger picture, what do you inspire as from shorts and commercials, a certain film?
Well, I join you when you say more, so there's a lot of director that we admire that comes from commercials. My first, I think I was 12 or 13, and I realized what a director was, on cinema, because before you don't really know. I wasn't born in a family that would know anything about that. And I got a keen interest watching cinema. I have always liked pictures and stuff. So I made photos when I was a kid, but seeing the moving pictures really enlightening something in me. I think my first love was Ridley Scott, I'd say, which started in he made Beaux-Arts, and then he did a shitload of commercials. Yeah. And I was very, very impressed with Alien and Blade Runner, and even his first film, The Duelists. And the beauty of the shots and the cinematography, the overall cinematography, it really blew my mind. And I think to this day, that's what I love the most in cinema. It's not even narrative. It's how gorgeous some shots can be and how intelligent they can be, because they're saying something. And that's what I was saying before. I always try to show intent when I'm doing something. It's the same with lights. You have to show intent. And in my mind, Ridley Scott, when I was 13, was a beacon, so like that, where there was a shitload of others. I mean, obviously Stanley Kubrick was a master at that.
One particular film that stuck out to you, though, like either from Ridley Scott or from another?
Ridley Scott? From Ridley Scott?
Yeah.
I have to say Blade Runner.
Blade Runner?
Or maybe Alien. They kind of tie.
Yeah, it's always hard to say the one, because I think that's true. It's like my favorite filmmaker is Sam Peckinpah. So
okay.
And I don't know if you know much of his work.
He did Straw Dog, didn't he?
He did Straw Dogs. Yeah, that's one of his features. But like here in the States, he's known more for The Wild Bunch, and then Straw Dogs is kind of
The Wild Bunch, yeah.
shot that in the UK, so it's
With
probably
Nicholson, right? The Wild Bunch.
No, William Holden, Ben Johnson, a lot of old Western actors in it as well. He never made a movie with Nicholson, Peckinpah. So kind of Chris Christopherson, James Coburn, a lot of spaghetti Western actors, Italian Western actors were involved in his films. But so for me, like, but I always say my favorite film, it's like the film that made me want to be a filmmaker is not a Peckinpah movie. It's Jim Jarmusch's Stranger Than Paradise. There's something about that film. It's very simplistic, but then it's so much. In some ways, it might even. I mean, it has paradise in the title as well. But I think that there's sort of these questions of not just sort of beautiful picturesque moments, questions of Americana, but also of immigration, but also just sort of in purgatory kind of state, standing around, wondering what to do, kind of thing. So I always say like that's the film that made me want to be a filmmaker, anything like that. But of course, my favorite director is Sam Peckinpah because I always feel like the storytelling is there. But you said Wreck in Paradise was not inspired by that. There was another inspiration.
No. Well, it turned out for Rec, specifically Rec, I didn't really. I really did something that came out of my mind by all the influences you have, and it turned out to really look like some. Well, I've been told that, and I like it as well. You talked of David Lynch. I was told that before, and I didn't have in mind at all. And there's a French director that's pretty well known with Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who made Alien 4, and he made La Cité des Enfants Perdus.
Amélie next, yeah. What's the other one that he made? City of Lost Children is called in the States.
Oh, and Amélie Poulain.
I think, yeah.
Amélie, yeah. And it kind of looks like it as well, but I think it's more to do with the work with the light. I'd like to mention Thomas Manche, who was the director of photography. We did a great job on a very small budget because he really put something in his work is seen through every frame as well because of the light. He was the one who came up with the two separate ambience over the BR, over the pool table. The deep orange and deep blue, once again, paradise versus hell. And Thomas just blew my mind on this thing. And I think that's because of his lights and his color that we get the remark with Jean-Pierre Jeunet, because I didn't expect it to have something this saturated. And when we went back doing the grading, we thought, let's push it. Let's push it because it worked. It really worked. It's kind of a comic book at the end, really.
It evolved into a comic book. I think that it starts out pretty gritty and sort of very much like, in sort of a handheld, not a handheld, but a kind of on the level, even though you have that amazing shot in the beginning. And then eventually it goes into, sort of this otherworldly dimension, for lack of a better word. What I was going to say is the work of Gaspar Noé is always something I always look forward to. His work. I don't know how much if he's still well received over in France or not. I know it's sort of
he's definitely said something in France, Gaspar Noé. Very powerful cinematography, very powerful narratives.
Yeah. How do you pronounce his cinematographer's name? It's Benoit. Is cinematographer? I always mispronounce his name.
Of Gaspar Noé?
Yeah, it's the one. Its name's he has my name, Ben, but it's Benoit. What is his name? He shot like all of Harmony Korine's like Spring Breakers and more recent stuff.
Benoit Deby.
Saturated color as well.
It's Benoit Deby.
Deby, yeah. So the work of his work, I'm always fascinated by. I don't know if you know the work of Harmony Korine. at all? Like Spring Breakers, Beach Bum, anything on that level? It's just
Nope.
more Benoit has done in the States here, but
Okay.
again, like high contrast, saturation, color, and whatnot. So that kind of brought a lot in my head. Reminded me when we were talking about with Wreck in Paradise. But yeah, his Steadicam work is insane as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I think it's just something that's very special to see in world cinema, a film like yours that really kind of it uses the allegorical sense of what filmmaking story is, but at the same time has just such a wicked sense of humor, and it kind of keeps it kind of all in perspective. I mean, also your lead actor, we've not mentioned at all. Where did you find him? How did you kind of get him involved?
The name's Bastian Gio. It was amazing as well. We actually found him on casting.
Oh.
I was looking for a mid-60 actor, and that was it. And he just came along, and he brought many things to the part, and mainly he has a Chaplin dimension to him. I remember on the first day of shoot outside, he would do something like this. It's a shot from behind when he discovers the bar, and then he walks, and he's walking, a bit like, I don't know the word in English, but he has a special work, okay? And just suddenly he would do this with his shoulder, just one shoulder, and it looked like Chaplin. It looked like shallow, and I thought, oh, that's really not what I was going for, but let's try that. And I think he's carrying that throughout the piece. He's really been a trooper.
Yeah.
The opening shot, we made it with we didn't have the money to have a regular crane or anything. I didn't want to use a drone because I wanted to finish that close to his nose, so it was too dangerous. So we actually rented a crane, but a scissor lift for construction.
Mm-hmm. Cherry picker.
So by the time it was really tricky to descend everything at the same time, so it would move just too brutally, and the shot would be crap. And we actually made something like 30 plus takes. This, I don't know how old he was at the time, but maybe 67 or something like that. He would crawl out of this car 33 times for my 33 shots. And he would go for, I don't know, I could have asked for 100, and he would there. It was amazing. It was really amazing. I had good time with Bastien on that shoot.
He has a reminding, and it's a film that also takes place primarily in a bar or bars, is a Steve Buscemi film. He reminds me of Steve Buscemi quite a bit. The actor, Steve Buscemi. A film called Trees Lounge, where he directed, where he's a guy who runs an ice cream truck, but he primarily frequents this bar called Trees Lounge a lot.
Okay.
Gets drunk and gets involved in a relationship with a very young woman who's underage and stuff like that. And so his performance reminded me a lot of that as well.
Okay, I'll have a look at the thing. Steve Buscemi is pretty well known here in France, but I'm not familiar with this film as well. There's so many things I need to watch.
Oh, it's kind of in line with a lot of Jarmusch's kind of work, like Strangers in Paradise. Not very overt, in your face, but very kind of scaled back, subtle. A lot of blocking wise is very much wide lenses. Not a lot of extreme.
Oh, I'd like to tell you one last thing as well. I'd like to talk about the comedian, Leah Donneville, that played the boss lady, the one in the bar. I want to mention her because the job she made was fantastic, because she was not supposed to be in. It was supposed to be two men talking, and we had a problem pre-shoot, and she actually took the role 2 days prior to the shoot and made them hers. So we changed, she wrote with me those changes, and she actually filled in like on the snap of a finger. And I think that was amazing because it saved the film. So I wanted to thank her, Leah Donneville. And while I'm thinking people, there's my first AD. He was magnificent as well. His name is Thierry Bayou, and without him, there would be no film. I just wanted to mention that.
And your lead bartender, so she replaced.
Sorry, Benji. Mais même dans 2, si tu veux, je peux finir dès maintenant. Ouais, je finis. Okay.
Let me know when you.
So yeah, I have to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's about the time.
I'm gonna have to go.
For clarity, so your bartender replaced 2 actors, so it's 2.
No, one.
One.
I wrote the piece with 2 men in mind, and they would just exchange. And then I had to replace the original bartender just prior to the shoot, and she filled in. So we rewrote a bit of the script because obviously there were some things you can say between 2 men you couldn't say between a man and a woman. Particularly the third challenge, when the barman would tell her that the whole lady up there should be fucked and should come out of it. Since she's supposed to be a mother, she couldn't say that. So we had that change. We have a big black guy that's coming to the line. He was Adonis is his name in the film. He was actually an extra that we gave some lines to because this particular piece of dialogue couldn't work between those 2. That's part of the adjustment, the last minute adjustment we had to make.
Oh wow, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we can definitely diverse. I've had that experience of the actor you've had in mind and changes last minute coming in and actually making your film better, or changing the dynamic, working around it, making it a different movie, but at the same time something that you're quite proud of over time. But don't mean to keep you any longer. It looks like things are heating up there. So François Zaïdi, pleasure. A Wreck in Paradise. Where is it going to next? So.
Well, it's actually nowhere, because I think it's going to be probably his last showdown. It's a film I shot in 2018, so it's starting to. It adds a good career. It went for something like 75 selections and won 25 awards. So it's from where we started here in France. It's a pretty good run, I'd say. I want to thank Festival Formula as well, that helped us touring the film. There's so many people I should thank for the film, but we probably don't have time. There's Céline Dabin, the producer, and there's so many people, but all the crew that really worked with me on that, just for the art, and that's
well,
that's very special to me.
Look forward to seeing more from you. Hope to see a feature at some point here. I know it's different times, but you got plenty of road down the road, and I think you got your 3 drinks well ahead of you there. So
thanks a lot, Benji Carter. I love your bottle. That's a very, very nice touch to this interview. Thanks a lot to your organization and to Rumini as well.